I'm James Chow. You're watching the Pacific Dialogue, where we bring you the United States and China unscripted. I'm thrilled this week to honor two people who've done so much through their work and through their lives to shape the world and humanity. Professor Ezra Vogel, who is the former director of the Fairbanks Center at Harvard University, and Professor Jia Qingguo, Dean of International Studies at Peking University. You're over in Beijing and over in Boston. I'm in Hong Kong. But what about the world we live in today? Foreign Minister Wang Yi says that about 4 decades on from the China-United States forging this diplomatic relationship, they've now hit their lowest points. Jia Qingguo, do you agree with what he says?
It is at least one of the lowest points, depending on how you measure it. I think politically speaking, the relationship is at the lowest point. But if you talk about economic relations, social contacts, I think we are way ahead of that. So I think the political relationship is at the lowest point since then. Yeah.
Professor Vogel, you've seen this relationship literally open and develop and evolve in its many beautiful and complex ways. Some people call it the lowest point. Jimmy Carter warned about a year and a half ago that they were heading towards a modern Cold War. Are these just words, or have they come now to full fruition?
I agree with Jia Qingguo that politically we're perhaps at our lowest point. As you know, our Pompeo made a speech the other day that all of us who consider U.S.-China relations important thought was terrible. And the reaction has been very strong to that speech. And I think politically the discussions of coronavirus, where each country blames the other and the leaders blame the other country and probably say things that are not true, they exaggerate, is really very serious and very dangerous. And I agree that politically it's at the worst. And at the same time, we still have many contacts, even in the medical field. We have people in the two countries working together. We certainly have many businessmen working together, scholars working together. So it's not like it was in '73 when I first visited China, when there was almost no contact at all.
You talk about the pandemic, and of course, apart from the political cost, there's the cost of human lives. People are being infected, people are dying each and every day. We'll return to the pandemic, and perhaps also, if we may, to your early experiences in 1973. But Professor Vogel, your new piece in the Washington Post recalls many of the Chinese students that you've taught over many decades. You say that they're now being torn between a loyalty to their own country, a genuine loyalty, but also an affection for America, who many of them would see as their second home. Is it now impossible in a binary world to balance both interests, to be friends with both?
Well, they feel like I do, that I want to be patriotic to my own country, but I want to have good relations with the other country. And many of them who were here enjoyed the time here. And when Americans criticize without thinking, and they criticize every member of the Communist Party as if they were all the same, as if they all hated America, that's just not true. And for the many who were here and want to be patriotic to China, want to help their country, but want to maintain good relations with their friends and their studies, their fellow scholars and colleagues in the United States, they're put in a bind. And I think many of them that I know want to be patriotic. They want to help their country. Of course, they're proud of their country. But at the same time, they realize there are many good Americans, and even though American government policy now toward China is very nasty, and Trump and Pompeo say some crazy things, they know that many Americans are still ready to be good friends and work with them.
Well, Professor Vogel wrote this piece, as we said, in the Washington Post, which I'm sure, Jia Guo, you also saw as well. So, Professor Jia, what he says over there, what he writes in the headline about US policies pushing friends of China towards anti-American nationalism. I mean, how do you stop this from evolving further? You've seen in your own country, in Chengdu, an American consulate shut down just in the last day or two. We saw a couple of days before that, the Chinese consulate in Houston, after many years, a very important mission there, also shut down. How do you say stop? Pause. If we can't go forward, that's okay, but how do we pause and then stop the rot almost from seeping further into the soil?
Well, it's difficult. At the moment, I think the Trump administration appears to be determined to provoke some kind of a crisis in order to enhance his political position at home for re-election. So it's very difficult to stop it. And also, there is domestic politics in China too. So when the U.S. closes down the Houston consulate, China feels that it has to close down the Chengdu consulate. And if the U.S. decides to do something else, and Chinese government may feel necessary to do something else. So the relationship is still at a slippery slope, deteriorating. And I just hope that people on both sides would cool down and take a more pragmatic approach to handle the relationship. It's difficult, but I think people on both sides should make some efforts.